The Kethver drifted silently through the cold darkness of space, its once bright hull now scarred and blackened from the explosion that had torn through its engine bay 3 weeks ago. Commander Veltar pressed his long, pale fingers against the viewport and watched another piece of debris float past the observation deck. His kind, the Zenthari, were tall and graceful beings with skin that seemed to glow softly in the dim emergency lighting. Their bones were hollow like birds, and their muscles were designed for the gentle gravity of their homeworld Zenther Prime. Veltar had been studying ancient ruins on the Dead planet below when everything went wrong. The archaeological team had been examining strange metal structures that seemed to pulse with unknown energy. One of the junior researchers, eager to make a discovery, had touched something he should not have touched. The energy pulse that followed had knocked out their ship's main power core and left them stranded in orbit around a dying star. "Commander, life support is down to 18%, reported his communications officer Nithara from her station across the bridge. Her voice carried the musical quality all Zenthari possessed, but Veltar could hear the fear beneath her. Calm words. Like all of her species, Nithara had never faced a real crisis before. The Zenthari Federation had not seen war or disaster in over 1,000 years. Their technology was perfect, their society was peaceful, and their ships were built for exploration, not survival. The bridge around them was falling apart slowly. Crystalline panels that once displayed star charts now flickered with static. The air recycling system made grinding noises that hurt Veltar's sensitive ears. Through the deck plates, he could feel the ship's structure groaning as metal expanded and contracted with each temperature change. Without proper heating, some sections of the ship had already become too cold for Zenthari to survive. "Any response from the Federation?" Veltar asked, though he already knew the answer. They were too far from home, too far from any Zenthari colony or outpost. Even if their distress signal reached friendly space, help would take months to arrive. The crew would be dead long before rescue ships could make the journey. Nithara shook her head, her large eyes reflecting the emergency. "Lights. Nothing from our territory, Commander. The nearest Federation vessel is 14 standard weeks away." She paused and checked her instruments again. "But I am detecting something else. There's a star system 12 light hours from our position. My scans show it has inhabited planets." Veltar moved closer to her station, his movements careful and precise. Even in this crisis, Zenthari maintained their natural grace. "What kind of inhabitants? Are they Federation members?" "No, Commander. The system is not in our databases, but the energy signatures suggest a developing civilization. They appear to have basic space travel and some form of communication networks." Nithara's fingers danced over her console, pulling up what information their damaged sensors could gather. "The dominant species appears to live on the third planet from their star. According to our classification system, it would be rated as Class 12 Extreme Hazard." Veltar felt his heart sink. A Class 12 world meant a planet so dangerous that most civilized species could not survive there for more than a few hours. Such worlds had crushing gravity, violent weather, poisonous atmospheres, or aggressive life forms. Sometimes all of those things at once. What kind of beings could evolve on such a nightmare world? And more importantly, what could such primitive savages possibly do to help a Zenthari exploration vessel? "Commander," called out Engineer Collinth from the rear of the bridge. His voice was weaker than usual, and Veltar could see that the elderly Zenthari was struggling with the reduced oxygen levels. "Hull breach in Section 7 has expanded. We are losing atmosphere faster than our emergency seals can compensate. At current rates, we have perhaps 4 days of breathable air remaining." 4 days. Veltar closed his eyes and tried to think. In 4 days, they would all suffocate slowly as their air grew thin and toxic. The thought terrified him more than he wanted to admit. Zenthari were not built for suffering. Their nervous systems were too sensitive, their bodies too fragile. When Zenthari died, it was usually quick and peaceful, surrounded by family and comfortable medical facilities. Not alone in the cold darkness, gasping for air that would never come. "There is another problem," Collinth continued. The food synthesis units failed this morning. Our emergency rations will last perhaps 6 days, but only if we reduce consumption to minimum survival levels. He did not need to explain what that meant. Xanthari required specific nutrients that their bodies could not produce naturally. Without proper food, they would weaken rapidly. Their immune systems would fail, and death would come from a dozen different directions. Veltar looked around his bridge at the crew he had led through 5 years of peaceful exploration. These were scientists and researchers, not warriors or survivors. They studied art and philosophy, ancient cultures, and cosmic phenomena. None of them had ever faced real danger before this mission. The youngest crew member, apprentice researcher Sindel, was only 43 years old and had never been away from Xanthar Prime before joining their expedition. "Nathara," Veltar said finally, his voice steady despite his fear. "Prepare a wide-spectrum distress signal. Include our coordinates, ship specifications, crew complement, and current situation. Transmit it toward the inhabited system you detected." His communications officer looked confused. "Commander, these beings are clearly primitive. Their technology appears to be centuries behind ours. What could they possibly do to help us?" "Perhaps nothing," Veltar admitted. "But we have no other options. If we are going to die out here, at least let it not be said that we died without trying every possibility." He moved to the captain's chair and settled into its worn cushions. "They may be primitive, but they survived on a Class 12 world. That suggests they might know something about survival that we do not." Nathara nodded and began working on the distress signal. Her fingers moved quickly over the translation matrices, converting Xanthari standard language into mathematical concepts that any spacefaring species should be able to understand. Coordinates, ship mass, crew numbers, time remaining until life support failure. All the information needed for someone to attempt a rescue, if they chose to do so. "Signal prepared, Commander," she reported. "Transmitting now on all frequencies." The message flashed out into space at the speed of light, carrying with it the desperate hope of 57 Xanthari scientists and crew members. Somewhere in the darkness, on a world that their own databases classified as too dangerous for civilized life, beings unknown were about to receive their first contact with galactic civilization. Veltar could only pray that these mysterious creatures from their deadly world might somehow possess the knowledge and technology to save them from the slow death that awaited in the cold vacuum of space. Lisa Rodriguez was halfway through her third cup of coffee when the communication array on Luna Station began screaming alerts across every frequency monitor. She had been working the night shift for 2 years, and most of her job involved routing supply requests and maintenance reports between Earth's orbital facilities. The most exciting thing that usually happened was the occasional solar flare warning or debris collision alert. "What the hell?" Lisa muttered as she pulled up the signal analysis on her main screen. The computer was having trouble processing whatever it had received, running translation protocols she had never seen before. The signal was clearly artificial, definitely not natural cosmic background radiation, but it was unlike anything in the database of known human transmissions. She hit the emergency button on her console and opened a direct line to Earth Command. Within seconds, the face of Duty Officer Captain Jake Morrison appeared on her screen. Morrison looked tired, but his expression sharpened quickly when he saw the data Lisa was transmitting. "Are you telling me this is from outside our solar system?" Morrison asked, his voice carrying the crisp authority of someone who had spent 20 years in Earth's military. "Yes, sir," Lisa replied, her heart beating faster as she watched the computer slowly decode the mathematical patterns in the signal. The transmission originated from coordinates approximately 12 light hours away. "And sir, the computer thinks it knows what it says." Morrison leaned forward in his chair. "Put it through." The translated message appeared on both their screens simultaneously. "Ship designation Kethver, crew of 57, hull breaches. Life support failing. 4 days remaining. Request immediate assistance." For a moment, both humans sat in stunned silence. First contact with alien life was something that scientists and philosophers had debated for centuries. Every government on Earth had protocols for such an event, plans that involved careful study, diplomatic committees, and months of preparation. None of those plans had considered the possibility that humanity's first contact with aliens would be a desperate cry for help. "Holy shit," Morrison whispered, then caught himself. "Sorry, Rodriguez, this changes everything." Within an hour, the message had reached the highest levels of Earth's government. Admiral Susan Blake sat in her office at Terra Defense Command, surrounded by her senior staff and a dozen civilian scientists who had been dragged from their beds to analyze the alien transmission. The room buzzed with excited conversation as xenobiologists and linguists pored over every detail of the signal. "The linguistic patterns suggest a highly advanced civilization," Dr. Patricia Wong was explaining to the assembled group. "Their mathematics are elegant, their communication protocols are sophisticated, and their distress call includes detailed technical specifications that demonstrate extremely precise engineering." Admiral Blake nodded, but her military mind was focused on more practical concerns. "What about the coordinates they provided? Can we reach them?" "Yes, ma'am," reported Navigation Specialist Commander Carl Foster. "It's at the edge of our current range, but definitely possible. We would need to use our fastest ships and push the engines hard, but we could make it there in about 60 hours. "That gives us a safety margin," Blake said, calculating in her head. "If they have 4 days of life support remaining, we could reach them with time to spare." She looked around the room at her officers. "I'm authorizing a rescue mission. Full military response. 3 ships minimum, all volunteers only." Her Chief of Staff, Colonel Martha Davis, raised a hand. "Ma'am, with respect, shouldn't we discuss this with the civilian government first? This is first contact with alien life. There are protocols, procedures, international agreements that need to be considered." Blake stood up and walked to the large display showing the alien coordinates. "Colonel, those protocols were written for diplomatic contact. This isn't diplomacy, this is a rescue mission. 57 beings are going to die if we don't act immediately." She turned back to face the room. "I don't care what planet they come from or what they look like. They asked for help, and we're going to give it to them." Within 6 hours, Captain Ryan Torres received his orders aboard the heavy cruiser UES Defiance. The ship had been designed for deep space patrol and possible combat with hostile forces, carrying enough firepower to take on most threats that humanity might face among the stars. Torres had commanded the Defiance for 3 years, and he had handpicked his crew from the best that Earth's military had to offer. "This is not a drill," Torres announced over the ship's communication system as the Defiance prepared for departure. "We have received a distress signal from an alien vessel. Their ship is damaged, their crew is dying, and we are the only ones who can reach them in time." He paused, letting that sink in. "Every person on this ship volunteered for this mission knowing that we might be flying into unknown danger. What we're doing today will be remembered for as long as humanity reaches for the stars." Chief Medical Officer Dr. Kate Phillips was working frantically in the ship's medical bay, trying to prepare for patients she had never seen before. The alien message had included some basic biological data, but it was almost impossible to interpret. She had loaded the medical computers with every piece of information humanity had gathered about theoretical alien biology, but she knew she would essentially be inventing xenomedicine from scratch. "Doc, you doing okay down here?" asked Chief Engineer Danny Walsh as he stuck his head into the medical bay. Walsh was a stocky man with hands permanently stained with engine grease and a reputation for being able to fix anything that could break on a spaceship. "Honestly, Danny, I have no idea what I'm doing," Kate admitted as she checked her supplies for the 20th time. "I'm preparing to treat beings whose biology might be completely different from ours. For all I know, our medicines could poison them, or our surgical techniques might kill them." Walsh grinned and sat down on one of the medical beds. "You know what I think? I think if these aliens were smart enough to build spaceships and send distress calls, they're probably tougher than they look. And if there's one thing humans are good at, it's figuring things out when everything goes wrong." The Defiance was joined by 2 other ships for the rescue mission. The UES Ranger, a fast attack vessel commanded by Captain Amy Stewart, would provide reconnaissance and rapid response capability. The UES Guardian, under Captain Peter Hayes, carried additional medical supplies, repair equipment, and emergency life support systems that might be needed for an extended rescue operation. As the three ships accelerated away from Earth's orbital facilities, their crew settled into the routine of deep space travel. But this was unlike any mission any of them had flown before. They were heading into the unknown to help beings they had never met, using technology they had never tested, against alien systems with no backup plan if things went wrong. ETA to target coordinates is 58 hours, reported Navigator Lieutenant Karen Bell from the Defiance Bridge. All systems running smoothly, engines performing within normal parameters. Captain Torres nodded and looked out at the stars, streaming past as they pushed toward maximum velocity. Somewhere ahead of them, in the cold darkness between stars, aliens were dying slowly as their ship fell apart around them. He thought about Admiral Blake's words before departure. This wasn't just a rescue mission. This was humanity's introduction to the galaxy, their first chance to show what kind of species they were when faced with others in need. Maintain course and speed, Torres ordered. Signal the Ranger and Guardian to stay in formation. We're going to reach them in time, and we're going to bring them home safe. The Xanthari ship looked like it was dying when Captain Torres first saw it on his main screen. The Kethver hung motionless against the backdrop of stars, its hull cracked and blackened, atmosphere streaming from multiple breaches in thin white, trails that caught the distant starlight. Torres had seen damaged ships before, but never anything quite like this. The alien vessel was beautiful even in its broken state, with flowing curves and organic lines that seemed to have been grown, rather than built. "Jesus Christ," whispered Lieutenant Bell from her navigation station. "How is that thing still holding together?" Torres moved closer to the main display, studying the damage patterns. His military experience told him that any human ship with that level of structural damage would have broken apart hours ago. Whatever these aliens built their ships from, it was clearly far more advanced than Earth's technology. But it was also obviously not designed for the kind of punishment that human vessels routinely survived. "Open a communication channel," Torres ordered. "All frequencies, maximum power. Let's see if anyone's still alive over there." The response came faster than expected, in the same mathematical language that had been used for the original distress call. The ship's computer began translating immediately, converting alien concepts into English words that appeared on every screen across the bridge. "Human vessels, this is Commander Veltar of the Xanthari exploration ship Kethver. We did not expect anyone to respond to our signal. Your ships appear to be military in nature. We mean no threat to you or your people. We are peaceful researchers trapped by equipment failure." Torres exchanged looks with his communications officer. Lieutenant David Chun, the alien commander, sounded terrified, as if he expected the human ships to open fire at any moment. Torres realized that from their perspective, 3 heavily armed warships dropping out of hyperspace probably looked like an invasion force rather than a rescue mission. "Commander Veltar, this is Captain Ryan Torres of the Earth vessel Defiance. We received your distress signal and came to help. We're here to rescue you and your crew, nothing more. Can you provide us with details about your current situation?" There was a long pause before the response came through. When it did, Torres could hear something like relief in the alien's translated words, though the computer's voice remained flat and mechanical. "Captain Torres, we have 57 crew members aboard. Our hull has been compromised in 14 locations. Life support is operating at minimal levels and will fail completely within 36 hours. Our medical facility reports 17 crew members suffering from atmospheric exposure and 3 who may not survive much longer without immediate treatment." Dr. Kate Phillips, who had been monitoring the communication from the medical bay, immediately contacted the bridge. "Captain, I need to get over there right away. If they have injured crew members, every minute counts." Torres nodded and turned to his tactical officer. "Commander Johnson, what's our status on boarding the alien vessel?" Sir, our scans show that ship's internal atmosphere is breathable by human standards, though it's thin and getting thinner. Gravity appears to be about 60% of Earth. Normal, the main concern is structural integrity. That ship could come apart if we're not careful with our approach. Within an hour, Dr. Phillips found herself in a shuttle bay she had never imagined she would see. The interior of the Xanthari ship was like something from a dream, with walls that curved and flowed like water frozen in motion. The lighting was soft and warm, completely different from the harsh fluorescent strips common on human vessels. But the beauty was marred by obvious damage. Cracks ran through several bulkheads, and she could feel the ship's structure groaning under stresses. It was never designed to handle. Commander Veltar met her at the airlock, and Kate got her first look at an alien being. The Xanthari commander was tall and graceful, with pale skin that seemed to glow softly in the dim emergency lighting. His movements were fluid and precise, but Kate's medical training immediately noticed signs of distress. His breathing was shallow and rapid. His eyes showed the telltale signs of oxygen deprivation, and he moved carefully as if every step caused him pain. "Dr. Phillips," Veltar said, his voice carrying a musical quality that the universal translator could not completely eliminate, "I must thank you for coming. We have never encountered your species before, but your willingness to help strangers speaks well of your people." Kate nodded and hefted her medical kit. "Commander, I need to see your injured crew members immediately. My equipment might not be compatible with your biology, but I'll do everything I can." What she found in the Xanthari medical bay shocked her. The injured aliens were clearly dying, but not from the kinds of trauma she had expected. Instead, they were suffering from conditions that seemed almost impossible to treat with the advanced medical equipment surrounding them. One Xanthari female was unconscious from what appeared to be minor atmospheric decompression, a condition that most humans would recover from quickly. Another was suffering from radiation exposure that would barely register as dangerous by human standards. "Commander," Kate said carefully, "I need to understand something about your people. Your medical equipment is far more advanced than ours, but these injuries, on Earth, we would consider them relatively minor." Veltar looked uncomfortable. "Doctor, you must understand that the Xanthari evolved on a very different world than yours. We are not robust, like your species appears to be. Our bones are hollow for lightness, our internal organs are delicate, and our nervous systems are extremely sensitive to trauma. What might be a minor injury to a human could easily kill one of us." Kate began to understand the scope of the problem. She was dealing with beings who were incredibly advanced technologically, but physically fragile in ways that human medicine was not designed to address. Their ship was failing not because of inadequate engineering, but because it had been built for exploration in safe, controlled environments where catastrophic damage was never expected to occur. Meanwhile, Chief Engineer Danny Walsh had boarded the Xanthari ship with a team of repair specialists. What he found amazed and frustrated him in equal measure. The alien engineering was elegant and sophisticated, with systems that operated on principles human science was only beginning to understand. But everything was designed with the assumption that it would never fail, never face unexpected stress, and never need emergency repairs. "This is incredible," Walsh reported to Captain Torres over his communicator. "Their power systems are at least 50 years ahead of anything we have. But there's no redundancy, no emergency backups, no manual overrides. When their main power core failed, they had no way to reroute systems or compensate for the loss." Engineer Kolanth, the elderly Xanthari who served as chief of engineering, watched in amazement as Walsh's team began installing human-made emergency patches over the hull breaches. The human repair methods looked crude and primitive, but they were working in conditions that would kill any Xanthari engineer. "Your people work in vacuum without concern," Kolanth observed, his translated voice carrying obvious admiration. "And you repair our ship using materials that should not function with our technology. How is this possible?" Walsh grinned as he welded another emergency plate into position. "Well, sir, where we come from, everything breaks eventually. You learn." To fix things with whatever you have available or you die. Our motto in the engineering corps is, if it's stupid, but it works. It's not stupid. The cultural divide became even more apparent as the rescue operation continued. The Xanthari watched in fascination as human crew members performed tasks that their own people could not survive. Working in hard vacuum, exposure to radiation, heavy lifting in low-gravity conditions, emergency repairs using improvised materials. All of it was routine for the human rescue teams. Dr. Phillips made a breakthrough when she realized that human emergency medicine, designed for treating trauma in battlefield conditions, was exactly what the Xanthari needed. Her field surgery techniques, developed for treating wounded soldiers, allowed her to stabilize patients that Xanthari medicine had given up for dead. The key insight, she explained to Commander Veltar as she worked, is that human medicine assumes everything will go wrong at the worst possible moment. We don't have the luxury of perfect conditions and unlimited time. We have to save lives fast with basic equipment while people are shooting at us. As the hours passed, both species began to realize that they had encountered something unprecedented in the galaxy. The humans were learning about beings whose technology was incredibly advanced, but whose society had never faced real hardship. The Xanthari were discovering a species that treated disaster as a normal part of existence, and had developed an entire civilization around the concept of survival under impossible conditions. Commander Veltar sat in what had once been the Xanthari ship's elegant observation lounge, now converted into a temporary command center where human and Xanthari officers worked side by side. Through the repaired viewport, he could see the three human vessels maintaining protective formation around his damaged ship. The sight still amazed him. These beings had traveled across space to rescue complete strangers, asking for nothing in return except the chance to help. Dr. Phillips had been working for 12 straight hours, moving between the human and Xanthari medical bays as she treated injured crew members. Her techniques were revolutionary by Xanthari standards, using methods that seemed almost barbaric but achieved results that their advanced medical technology could not match. She had just finished explaining to Veltar why human medicine was so different from what his people practiced. "You have to understand, Commander," Kate said as she reviewed the medical data on her tablet. "Human civilization developed under constant threat. Our ancestors faced predators, diseases, natural disasters, and warfare from the moment they became intelligent. We didn't have the luxury of perfect conditions. Every generation of humans had to survive things that would kill most other species." Veltar found this concept difficult to grasp. "But surely once your people developed technology, these dangers decreased?" Kate laughed, a sound that seemed strange in the musical atmosphere of the Xanthari ship. "Not really. We just found new ways to hurt ourselves. Industrial accidents, automobile crashes, sports injuries, military conflicts. Humans are constantly getting injured doing things that most sensible species would never attempt. So our medicine had to evolve to deal with trauma, emergency situations, and worst-case scenarios." This conversation was interrupted by Chief Engineer Walsh, who came floating through the corridor in the low gravity with a grin on his face. His uniform was dirty and torn from hours of crawling through damaged sections of the alien ship, but he looked pleased with his progress. "Doc, Commander," Walsh said as he settled onto the deck using magnetic boots. "You need to see what we found in their engine section. It's incredible." Veltar followed the two humans deeper into his own ship, moving through areas that had been sealed off since the accident. Walsh's repair teams had not only restored basic life support to these sections, but had actually improved their structural integrity using human engineering techniques. What they found in the engine bay left all three of them speechless. The Xanthari power core was a work of art, a crystalline structure that contained energies that human science could barely measure. But surrounding it now was a framework of human-made support beams, emergency power conduits, and backup systems that had been grafted onto the alien technology with surprising elegance. "Your power system is amazing," Walsh explained to Veltar as they examined the repairs. "It's more efficient than anything we could build, completely clean, and produces incredible amounts of energy." But when it failed, your whole ship shut down because there was no backup plan. Engineer Colinth emerged from behind the power core, his pale features showing exhaustion but also excitement. Danny has taught us something remarkable, Commander. Human engineering assumes failure. They build their systems expecting that everything will break eventually, so they include redundant backups for their redundant backups. Walsh nodded and pointed to a series of crude-looking but functional power conduits he had installed. Where I come from, if a system can fail, it will fail at the worst possible moment. So we design everything to keep working even when half of it is destroyed. It might not be elegant, but it's reliable. Veltar was beginning to understand something profound about these humans. They came from a world where survival was never guaranteed, where danger was a constant companion, and where failure meant death. This had shaped not just their technology but their entire approach to existence. "Tell me about your homeworld," Veltar asked as they made their way back to the observation lounge. "What kind of place could produce people like you?" Dr. Phillips and Engineer Walsh exchanged looks. How could they explain Earth to beings who had evolved on a garden paradise? "Well," Kate began carefully, "our planet has weather that can kill you. Hurricanes, tornadoes, blizzards, droughts, floods. The ground shakes without warning in earthquakes. Mountains explode in volcanic eruptions. The temperature can swing from hot enough to kill you to cold enough to freeze you solid, sometimes in the same day." Walsh picked up the explanation. "The gravity is almost twice what you're used to here. The atmosphere has enough oxygen to cause fires that can burn down entire forests. We have animals that can kill adult humans with a single bite, and diseases that can wipe out entire populations if we're not careful." Veltar listened with growing amazement. "And your people evolved in these conditions?" "Not just evolved in them," Kate continued. "We thrived in them. Humans spread across every continent on Earth, from frozen polar regions to burning deserts, from sea level to mountain peaks so high that the air is too thin to breathe. We learned to survive anywhere, eat almost anything, and adapt to conditions that would kill most other life forms." This revelation opened up an entirely new perspective for the Xanthari commander. He began to understand why the humans had responded to their distress call without hesitation, why they could work in conditions that terrified his own people, and why their technology was so focused on reliability rather than elegance. "In the Xanthari Federation," Veltar explained, "we have over 60 member species. All of them evolved on worlds similar to Xanthar Prime. Stable climates, gentle gravity, abundant resources, no natural predators. Our entire civilization is built around the concept of harmony with our environment rather than conflict with it." "That sounds wonderful," Kate said sincerely. "But it also means you never developed the survival instincts that humans take for granted. You never had to learn how to fight, how to adapt, or how to fix things when everything goes wrong all at once." Over the following days, as the repair work continued, both species learned more about each other. The humans discovered that the Xanthari Federation represented a vast community of peaceful, advanced civilizations that had eliminated war, poverty, and suffering from their societies. But they had also eliminated the challenges that forge resilience and adaptability. The Xanthari learned that humanity was unique in the galaxy, the only known species that had evolved on what they classified as a death world. Earth's hostile environment had produced beings who viewed problems as puzzles to be solved rather than disasters to be avoided. Where other species would give up or wait for perfect solutions, humans would improvise, adapt, and overcome using whatever tools they had available. Commander Veltar found himself spending hours talking with Captain Torres about the philosophical implications of their encounter. The human captain explained how Earth's military forces were trained not just to fight wars, but to respond to natural disasters, rescue civilians from dangerous situations, and provide humanitarian aid wherever it was needed on Earth. Torres said during one of their conversations, "We have a saying, no one left behind. It doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, or whether we've ever met before. If you're in trouble and we can help, we will help. This concept amazed Veltar. Your people risk their lives for complete strangers as a matter of routine? Pretty much, yeah, Torres replied. Firefighters run into burning buildings to save people they don't know. Coast Guard crews fly helicopters into hurricanes to rescue sailors from sinking ships. Doctors work in war zones and disaster areas because people need medical care. It's just what we do. As the HFY repairs neared completion, Veltar realized that this encounter would change both civilizations forever. The Xanthari had discovered a species that could solve problems they thought were impossible, survive in conditions they considered lethal, and provide capabilities that the peaceful Federation had never developed. The humans had learned that they were not alone in the universe, and that their unique evolutionary history had given them abilities that even the most advanced galactic civilizations lacked. The rescue mission was becoming something much more significant. A first contact that would redefine humanity's place in the galaxy and give the Xanthari Federation access to the one thing their perfect society had never produced, the ability to thrive when everything goes wrong. The departure ceremony took place in the observation lounge of the fully repaired HFY, with representatives from both species gathered to mark the end of humanity's first interstellar rescue mission. Commander Veltar stood before a mixed group of human and Xanthari officers, his pale features showing an emotion that his people rarely expressed in public. Profound gratitude, mixed with excitement about the future. Dr. Phillips had worked a miracle over the past week. All 17 injured Xanthari crew members had not only survived, but were recovering faster than anyone had thought possible. Her combination of human emergency medicine and Xanthari medical technology had created treatment protocols that neither species could have developed alone. Several Xanthari medical officers had requested copies of her techniques to study, calling them revolutionary advances in trauma care. Chief Engineer Walsh had performed an equally impressive feat with the ship's repairs. The HFY was now more structurally sound than it had been before the accident, reinforced with human-designed backup systems that would prevent catastrophic failure if the main power core ever failed again. The fusion of human reliability engineering with Xanthari advanced technology had created something entirely new. Captain Torres, Veltar said as the ceremony began, I have transmitted a complete report of our encounter to the Xanthari Federation Council. Your actions and those of your crew will be recorded in our historical archives as the moment when our people learned that we were not alone in our struggles against the void. Torres nodded respectfully. The human captain had grown to genuinely like the Xanthari commander during their time together. Despite their physical fragility, the aliens possessed a wisdom and cultural sophistication that impressed everyone in the human rescue fleet. Commander, it was an honor to help. Your people have taught us as much as we've taught you. The technology exchanges we've made will advance human science by decades. But both leaders knew that the real significance of their encounter went far beyond technology transfers or cultural exchanges. Admiral Susan Blake had been in constant communication with Earth throughout the rescue mission, and her latest message had contained news that would reshape human civilization. The Federation Council has extended an official invitation, Veltar continued, for humanity to join the galactic community as a full member species. They are particularly interested in establishing what they are calling emergency response partnerships with Earth's various governments. This announcement caused excited murmurs among both human and Xanthari crew members. Joining the galactic community would give humanity access to advanced technology, scientific knowledge, and cultural exchanges with dozens of alien civilizations. But the emergency response partnerships were something entirely new. Captain Amy Stewart of the UES Ranger stepped forward, her curiosity evident. What exactly do these emergency response partnerships involve? Veltar exchanged a look with his communications officer Nithara before answering. The Federation has realized that in over 1,000 years of peaceful existence, we have lost something essential, the ability to respond to true emergencies. Our member worlds are so stable, our technology so reliable, that when real disasters occur, we simply do not know how to react. Engineer Colanth nodded in agreement. We have had 3 major accidents in the past century. Each time, hundreds of beings died, not because we lacked the technology to save them, but because we lacked the knowledge of how to use our technology under crisis conditions. We had never developed what you humans call emergency procedures. Dr. Phillips found this both sad and fascinating. So when something goes wrong, you have all the tools needed to fix it, but no experience in using them quickly under pressure. Exactly, Veltar confirmed. But watching your people work has shown us what we have been missing. Humans treat emergencies as normal occurrences. You train for disasters, you plan for equipment failures, and you maintain the ability to function when everything is going wrong simultaneously. The implications were staggering. Admiral Blake had already briefed Torres on Earth's response to the Federation's proposal. Humanity would essentially become the galaxy's emergency response specialists, the people other civilizations would call when they faced disasters they could not handle alone. We would establish joint training programs, Veltar explained. Human emergency response teams would work with Federation specialists to develop crisis management protocols. In return, Earth would gain access to advanced Federation technology and full membership in the galactic community. Captain Peter Hayes of the UES Guardian raised a practical question. What kinds of emergencies are we talking about? Natural disasters, equipment failures, or something more serious? Nethara answered this time, her musical voice carrying a note of concern. All of those, Captain Hayes, and potentially much worse. The galaxy is not as safe as the Federation likes to believe. There are regions of space where dangerous phenomena occur, gravity storms, energy cascades, rogue artificial intelligences left over from extinct civilizations. When peaceful species encounter these threats, they usually try to avoid them rather than solve them. But avoidance is not always possible, Veltar added, and sometimes the threats grow larger when left unchallenged. The Federation Council believes that humanity's approach to problems, direct confrontation and practical solutions, might be exactly what we need to address these long-ignored dangers. Torres began to understand the true scope of what they were being offered. Humanity would not just be joining a galactic community as junior members learning from advanced civilizations. They were being invited as equals, bringing unique capabilities that even the most sophisticated alien societies lacked. There is more, Veltar continued. Several Federation member species have volunteered to establish permanent research stations on Earth. They want to study how humans develop resilience, adaptability, and crisis management skills. In particular, they are interested in your military training methods, your disaster response protocols, and your medical trauma treatment techniques. Dr. Phillips laughed at the irony. So they want to learn how to deal with emergencies by studying people who have emergencies constantly. In a sense, yes, Veltar smiled, an expression that looked strange but somehow appropriate on his alien features. Your planet has given you challenges that forced you to develop solutions. Our planets gave us peace that allowed us to develop wisdom. Together, we might achieve something that neither species could accomplish alone. As the ceremony concluded, both groups prepared for departure. The Zenthari would return to their home space carrying news of humanity's existence and capabilities. The humans would return to Earth with technology, knowledge, and an invitation that would transform their civilization's future, but several individuals from both species had made a different choice. 3 Zenthari scientists, including Nethara, had volunteered to accompany the human fleet back to Earth. They wanted to observe human society firsthand, to understand how a Deathworld species had developed their unique approach to existence. Similarly, Dr. Phillips and Engineer Walsh had requested permission to travel to Zenther Prime as part of a cultural exchange program. They would help establish the first Human Federation Emergency Response Training Center and begin developing the protocols that would make such partnerships possible. Captain Torres stood on the bridge of the Defiance as the ships prepared to part ways. Through the main view screen, he could see the Kethvar, now gleaming with its hybrid human Zenthari repair work, preparing for its journey home. In the distance, Earth's sun was visible as a bright point of light, calling its children back from their first successful mission to help alien life. "Set course for home," Torres ordered his navigation officer. "Full speed." As the human ships accelerated toward Earth, Torres thought about what they had accomplished. They had saved 57 alien lives, established humanity's first diplomatic contact with a galactic civilization, and discovered that Earth's harsh evolutionary history had given humans capabilities that were desperately needed among the stars. The distress signal that had started this adventure had changed everything. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe, but more importantly, they had found their purpose among the stars. They would be the people others called when everything went wrong, the Deathworlders who could survive and solve problems that would destroy any other species. Admiral Blake's final message had summed it up perfectly. Earth's children have finally found their place in the galaxy. We are the ones who show up when things go wrong and somehow make them right again. The 3 ships of the rescue fleet continued their journey home, carrying with them the knowledge that humanity's greatest strength was not their technology or their intelligence, but their refusal to accept that any problem was truly unsolvable. In a galaxy full of advanced civilizations that had forgotten how to struggle, Earth's children had become something precious beyond measure, the people who never gave up, no matter how impossible the odds might seem. Behind them, the HFY began its own journey, carrying news that would echo across the galaxy. The Deathworlders had finally reached the stars, and the universe would never be the same again.